have roll call, I guess, but it's us who are here. We probably have Deb coming.
I have not heard that.
Kella.
I have not heard that either one of them will not be here.
Okay, so both should be attending. Okay, here she is. And then additions to the agenda, it looks like we have.
You got one addition under business, number 6.
Okay. Number 6. And then looking for a motion to adopt the agenda. Motion by Mark, second by Cheryl. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Okay, approve and correct minutes from the June 10th, 2014 regular meeting. I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes. Second by Lou. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Passed. We have financial reports. May 2014 treasurer's report and the 2014 monthly balance sheets. Motion by David to approve the financial reports. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mark. Any further discussion?
If I would, I'll point out a couple things. If you look on page 2 of the monthly expenditure report, just a couple things. The 243 that's in the hole is this Carl Perkins. We put in for our last payment, and we'll get that back. Also, the $100 that's in the hole down at the very bottom, we believe that was for accelerated reader in the elementary school, and we'll have to adjust our budget for that. We'll pull out of the elementary budget. On the third page, this is probably the one that I really wanted to point out, that minus 9,043, that is really special ed expenditures for our bands. We'll get reimbursed. In fact, we believe we'll get reimbursed more than the amount that is there. So it will not be a negative amount. And the second 2,295, that's how much we missed our fuel by for this winter. We did not put enough in there, and that'll have to come out of our general budget for that.
Well, you said it was for the bands, special
Yep.
ed bands?
Special ed transportation.
Transportation.
Yep. So it's van driver, it's the fuel, it's everything on that. So we'll put in, we'll charge that back, and we believe that in the end it'll be higher than the $9,000 that we get reimbursed.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Passed. Next on the agenda, we would have audit approval of bills, additional May 2014 bills and June 2014 bills.
I had the opportunity this morning to go through the bills, and I would make a recommendation to approve the additional May bills and the June bills as written.
So we have a motion by Mark. I'll make the second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Passed. Okay. Nothing on the consent agenda. We did have a request to move item number 4 to the beginning, which we'd like to do. So if we could skip to number 4, review and consider approval of the 2014-15 secondary student parent handbook.
Yeah. as you know, we do this one usually a little earlier than the rest of the handbooks because we do send this off so that we can put the student handbook into the student planners that we give to the grades 7 through 12, and then 6th grade gets the same planner, but it's a little bit bigger, and we just need the time for printing. The big change with the student handbook is we were able to get this one reformatted, so it does go alphabetic. It's in alphabetical order, so hopefully it will be more user-friendly for our parents and students, et cetera, when they're looking things up. The two changes that we had, one was more of a clarification. It's a process that we have had since I have been here, and actually talking to John Janata, he followed it as well. But if you look on page 3, academic credit, and we had the question come up with a school, we had a student transfer to a school out in Colorado. And it came up twice this year. We just had 2 different occasions. And we just thought it should be in there somewhere so that parents or other schools know, so we can send it. Because it was sent to us by another school when a student transferred in from southern Minnesota. And that was, if you look at the academic credit, the last sentence, we do not offer partial quarter credits for students that transfer during a quarter. What we do is we send the class and what the current grade is for the student to that school, and then it's up to that school, and that's what we do, is they take a similar class, or the school themselves decide how they're going to treat that, because it's very hard for us to say, well, you're going to miss 3 weeks or 4 weeks of our quarter, but we're still going to give you a quarter credit for that class. So we did feel that we should put that in there so that we would have it if a school, and that's what the counselor there was saying, well, you know, can you show me some documentation? And, you know, that's the piece that we didn't have. So we thought if we put it in our handbook, then it would be there so that we could have that there. So that was one. The other one, if you remember, last year on page 8, under attendance, if you go to number 7, it's at the very top of page 8. We moved, instead of saying family vacations, we went to vacations. The only change there is the guideline worked very well. It was easier for parents to understand, to work with, that as long as they notified us, you know, if my child was going on a fishing trip with my brother, it would still be excused even if mom and dad themselves aren't going, or more reasonably, like going down to see a friend participate at the state track meet. So it just was it's a better guideline. We just changed the wording to take out family vacations and went with just vacations. So I think in today's climate and world, it is a better guideline for us to use. So those were the only two changes to the guidelines and processes set up in the student handbook. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
I have a question on bullying. As I listen to the state talking about all their stuff, bullying comes up everywhere.
Yep.
When I went through this, the only policy we have where we named the policy that I could find in here was the bullying policy, which is somewhere else, so it doesn't get to them. I would propose that we should add that to this handbook.
Okay.
If you talk to people about their students, one of the issues that can come up is bullying, and it's the only place that we have it. It's under the B's. I don't remember what page it was on.
You've got
Bullying page.
B, and then also
Right.
if you look at discipline policy, did you happen to look at the discipline policy on
Yes.
page 21? You know, it's mentioned there and referred to.
Except the bullying says prohibition policy 514, which can be viewed on the school website.
Correct.
That's what I don't like. I
Okay.
think it should be in here.
I would need to conjecture a little bit. There is a new policy
Yeah.
out, and we're certainly going to bring that forward to the board. I'm a little worried that if she waits to get that into that policy this year, it could cause some timing issues for us.
So what's the existing policy? We already have an existing policy.
Right, but there's new state mandate out.
Right.
So we've got to, we're going to have, the MSBA just came out with their newest version of the bully policy. that we'll need to bring before the board. That will meet all the requirements of the new state law on bullying.
In the past, even though that's all that's stated here, teachers would go through that full policy with the kids, because the first week of school, as far as the students getting it, the first week of school we spend going through the student's handbook, and one of those big components is the bullying, the attendance, and the harassment piece, and they take the actual guidelines and go through that with the students. So the students are talked to about it, and we discuss, what does this mean, what does that mean, in the classroom. At the same time, so that's how we covered it in the past. At the same time, with the new state statute, it is going to be required that it is actually given to the students. So, with the fact of, it will probably require the books to be a little more expensive in the future, because right now, I think it's you have to add 4 pages, but at the same time, the bullying, the harassment policies will probably take up those pages. So I think it is something, I don't know that we'll be able to get through it in the time that we'd have to process this, but we can certainly give it to the kids and have them staple it into the book at the same time when we give the books out for this year.
I can
And that
go
would
through
be
all of
my
our
only-
minutes, but I think I asked about the same thing last year. My question is almost identical to what it was last year on the bullying issue. That's a big issue. Sooner or later, it needs to hit this book, because I think this is what parents have at home. So lots of parents aren't gonna talk to you, they're gonna wanna read something, and maybe they go on the internet and read it, and that's fine. But we also know that everybody may not have internet access. So I think that with all of the information out there on bullying, there's no logical reason for it not to be here, other than if we.
Well,
you change
part of
it.
the problem this year is that MSB has just got their new bullying policy out not too long ago, and the state has just finalized all of that. So certainly, I don't have an issue with it going into the handbook. I do think we're gonna have the discussion on how much we're going to print every year, as budgets continue to be an issue. And I do realize that not everybody has the internet, but a lot of our parents do have the internet and are able to go there. So one option possibly could be to put it on the internet, and then any parents who do not have access would simply have to stop in the office and pick up that particular policy or handbook that has that policy in there. I'm not debating that, but the timing for this year was not good to get everything in there because of the changes.
And I'm just one of 7, so that's my opinion.
So I guess my question would be, if we do wait for the bullying policy for this year, what we would probably end up doing is seeing if we could change our contract with the company that we have for the books, pulling the whole handbook out of that planner and giving each student a packet like this, and then we would have to print that here, if that's possible. Because their deadline is beginning of next month, just to get them back, because we won't have our bullying policy by then.
I would just give you at least my feelings on this. I think to go over with the students and give them a copy of the policy and even have them stapled it in there will serve virtually the same thing. As we get the new policy done, we can certainly put the new handbook and put that attached right into the handbook on the internet.
Which we have had it on the internet, but I get your point, and it is part of our climate now, that we do need to bring it to the forefront with our students and our parents, so.
Yeah, it's just for me, I can go through the handbook and lots of stuff's not even out there. Bullying's all over the news. So we should either get done, but if you staple it in there or something.
Well, for this
so
year.
that if the parents see the handbook, they at least have something, and then, but it comes up so late that if it shows up next year and it's still not in there, I think we have a problem. That's just my thought.
Well, again, I think it just all depends upon, again, like when we were talking, and we just had a meeting today with copiers. How much are we willing to continue printing? And somewhere along the line, the electronic world is the wave of the future, and there's only so many dollars that we can accommodate to have it, but obviously if there's somebody that does not have access to internet, then by all means, we would have to give them a paper copy. But I'm just afraid if we keep, because these here are kind of contracted, and when you start changing things, then you have to remember, okay, that's in there, now we have to, bullying policy now change again because the government changed it. So we have to go back in there and then we have to retemplate it and do all that work to keep our handbook current with policies that could potentially be changed. So I'd rather see some of the policies not be in a handbook because of that reason too.
And I think at one of our policy meetings a couple years ago, that's kind of where we came with saying it's under the policy here,
Yep.
and not put the whole thing in, so.
It'd
And
be different
paraphrase
if,
it.
it'd be different if we were in a different climate, that we had all kinds of money to be printed and stuff like that, but like I said, I just sat through a 2-hour meeting this morning on printers, and you will be shocked at how many times, or how many printers, or how many copies that the school goes, or produces every month.
And this whole opportunity to have this printed in our student planner is donated. The whole student planner is donated by the credit union. So this whole project is a donation for our students.
But still money.
It's still
Somebody's paying
money,
for it.
yes, it
Somebody's
is.
paying for it.
If a parent needs a copy of any policy, can they come to the office and
Yep.
they can get a hard copy?
Yes, they can.
That's been that way for a long time with the, I especially remember the athletic student
Handbook or
yeah.
whatnot. We used to have them in a binder, and we used to try to update that or whatnot. Now we just pull them off as they come in, or they can call and request it, and we can send it home with their student. Either way, we try to be very user-friendly with them.
I do believe with the new policy, we're going to be covering this quite a
With
bit
the
with the
students?
students. I mean,
I think that's
We will.
effective.
To run a copy and
No,
have
let's
it.
cover it with the students like in person,
Yeah,
especially if it's a new policy.
Yeah, it certainly will be covered. I think it can be stapled in this time. It's the timing that I'm worried about, not so much that we can't put the policy in the handbook.
and
I
we
don't-
can certainly look
Any
at,
policy is a good policy.
you
as
know,
long as
the
it's
number of
people.
pages and that whole piece, and I think it's worthwhile to have that one in. At this point, it's gone through so many changes this whole year that at this time.
I'll make a motion that we approve the handbook for this year.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Cheryl. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passed. We also have public comment in here, if there's any public comment on the student handbook. Every business item for everybody here, we have public comment on every business item, and that is the first one. If we miss you, raise your hand, and somebody will catch it that we have to go back. Okay, number 1, review and consider approval of the proposed 2014-15 school year revenue and expenditure budgets.
We did go over the last meeting. This is the second look at this, so if there's questions, we can certainly go over them. Again, this is for next year's budget.
Do we have any questions?
I did have a question by a board member about whether or not our negotiated contract changes are in here and there. All but one. That would be me. So, and transportation, we're still working on that, and I'll kind of go over that during my reports, but we put something in our budget. But that's going to be a little bit of a journey, and we've just started that.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion by David to approve the 2014 budget.
Second.
A second by Lou. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Any public comment on that? Okay. Number 2, review and consider authorizing the superintendent to obtain bids for dairy and bakery products for the 2014-15 school year, with bids to be opened August 5th, 2014 at 10 o'clock.
This is a yearly piece that we do.
Why is it not on the consent agenda? Isn't it usually?
we could certainly put it on the consent agenda, we do have to do it.
Yeah.
I guess it's been on the business piece because it does deal with dollars and budgets and that kind of stuff.
We have a motion by Deb,
Second.
second by Kella. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Passed. Okay, review and consider approval of health and safety line item budget and reaffirm approval of District 741 Health and Safety Policy 807.
And again, this is a state requirement that we reaffirm the health and safety policy, which is front piece. And then we have to give our estimate of the line item budget for the rest of it on the back side. And most of our health and safety, again, are things that are required by us to take care of many times by the fire marshal.
Yeah, I'd entertain a motion to
I'll
approve.
make a motion.
Motion by Deb to approve the health and safety line item budget.
Second.
I have a second by Cheryl. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Passed. Any public comment on that? Okay. Before we move to number 5, review and discuss information concerning possible facilities and technology projects.
Yeah, I did hand another sheet out, and there should be some in the community. We've gone over this, we did have a facility meeting, and during my report, I'll apologize, because we did have a wrong place in our posting, at least on the internet for that, and I'll go over that during my reports and explain that. But for now, we did have a meeting to discuss this. A lot of this is the same, but I thought I would just go kind of through it one more time. When you look at UHL, those ECOs really are energy saving pieces that will come back to us within the 3 to 3.5 year piece. The motors we're concerned about because we're going to put some controls on our equipment, and we're concerned that because we're putting the controls on these motors, we'll get some motors that burn out. And we do get a rebate with that, and that cost is with rebates. We did talk about the other pieces that UHL brought out, and you saw those in the reports when they came in and reported, and the $58,000 is to fix all of the other items in the UHL report, other than the things that our own maintenance department will fix themselves, either have the capability now or will be trained to fix. Okay. When we talk about the boilers, and again, this is the elementary school, we talked about the boilers. Rather than replace the boilers right now, the facility committee is recommending that we just put more efficient burners on those boilers, and that comes in at approximately $30,000. The carpet to tile would really be removing all the carpet, turning it into tile, other than part of the, probably the media center in the elementary school, they would like to continue to have a little bit of carpet in there. But even part of the media center would have tile in it also. And that is all included in that $67,000. Univents is to replace 2 univents that are getting old, and we want to be prepared for that. And we did have a meeting at the elementary school, and that's why we moved it, but again, I'll get back to that. We did look at the elementary windows, and I think in the past, we were looking at replacing those. The bids on that probably would be more than $320,000, now it'd be $350,000. And what the facility group kind of looked at doing, instead of tearing all the windows out and replacing everything, is to just cover the windows with probably some insulation board and some other kind of covering, whether it be steel siding or something else, and putting new seals on the windows that are there. Okay, it will certainly help us with our energy savings, but at the same time won't cost as much to have everything torn out and then replaced. Also certainly help with the appearance of the building and the energy at the same time. So that's what the facility committee kind of looked at and talked about yesterday, and at least that's what the recommendation is. The $120,000 that they have down in there is just a rough estimate. We're still trying to get an estimate, a solid estimate for the board on it. All right, but it just was a lot of money to remove that whole wall, and you're not going to get all the cost savings back from that real fast, but if you insulate the whole wall and just leave the windows open that are there and reseal those with we believe we'll get what we're looking for out of that.
So is that removed from our last meeting?
Yes, that is new from last meeting, yeah. We had, that's why we had the facility meeting at the elementary school, so we could look at that wall.
This is just one wall of windows?
It's just one wall.
And where is this?
It's
Well,
on,
It's more than one wall.
well, it gets to be around the bend. Yeah.
Be the east side of the elementary part, the furthest east side, a little bit of the west side got those
So it's
windows,
the kindergarten through third grade.
correct? Then if you go on the other side of that building, there's more windows there. If you go to the total west side of the building, there's windows there, if I remember.
So those, there will
Just
be no
on the
windows
very
in the
west.
classroom then?
No, there'll be windows, but we're going to,
Walls, windows right now.
right now on the inside of those rooms, they're already covered up with a insulation board.
Okay.
So they're not getting the light out of theirs. We would leave the windows that are being used right now in place, so the same windows would be there, but the outside windows, because the whole wall is windows, virtually.
Okay,
But the inside is covered except for the windows that can open.
I gotcha.
We're gonna do the same thing virtually on the outside of that wall. Everybody kind of understand what I'm talking about? Probably should take a couple pictures, I certainly could have done that. Maybe I'll bring that to the board the next time and I can show you pictures of the wall. The high school, again, you get to UHL and ECOs, the energy pieces that we'll get back in 3.5 years. The motors, again, are still the same thing. We're putting the controls on. We'll worry about them burning out. That's $15,925. And the other, more expensive, bigger building site, $97,400. All right, then again, carpet to tile. Now, right now, the only places in high school, middle school that have carpet are, again, the media centers. And I think the high school would continue to like to do that. They were replaced not too long ago, so this cost does not include replacing those carpets. It only includes taking the other areas and taking out the carpet and changing them to tile. Lockers, again, you're not replacing them, you're repairing them, upgrading them, because there's some danger with some sharp edges. And we've got the $13,000 in there just to take care of those. The science room, again, was to replace the sinks and the plumbing in those science rooms.
So the labs will be operating.
The labs, yes, the labs will be operational. I guess I'd have to know a little bit more about where the concern came from that they're not operational. Certainly they've been used. We've increased, a good fume hood in those labs and stuff. This will certainly make our sinks more operational and the plumbing, because that's where the biggest issue is. When we talked to the science teachers about what they needed. That is what they told us.
When at the meeting, we had a positive thing come out about the exhaust fan that was put in 2 years ago. Was it considered a college level chemistry lab?
The hood fume, yes.
Yeah, fume system that we already have in those labs. So that was kind of interesting to know.
Yep.
Put that on the list of the things we need to brag about.
Yep. Any questions up in the community at this point for what I've covered so far? Okay. For the roofs, and I'll show you a little bit more. We came up with a picture that would help more, and I didn't make copies of this because it's in color. This would be the project for the year 2015. All right. As you can read, the repair in the this is the high school. You would repair the adhered and ballasted roofs in the yellow, and that would add, from what our presenter had said, 5 to 10 years. So that would repair those areas that are in yellow. And you would replace, and this is at the high school on the top one and the elementary at the lower one. So all the yellow would be to repair it, and all the red would be to replace it. And that would be the first project that we would do in 2015. Okay, questions on that? And then for the second project, in 2020, it's just replacing. There's no repair. We had already done that to extend the life of that beforehand. This is the high school area that we would be replacing in red. And this is the Landstrans building. that we would replace in the roof on. So that would be the second project. Any questions on any of that piece? I think this is a much better diagram for people to understand what we're replacing, what we're not, and what we plan to do. Okay. So the other piece that I did check with was an architect. If we went with Garland, we would not have had to do an architect. Remember, these will be glued down roofs that we're looking at. We would have to hire an architect. Again, would depend partly on whether we do the other project with the gyms and stuff, and we'll get to that in a little bit, because that might be included then. But otherwise, I checked with the architect, and it would cost us about $15,000 for each project. To have them do the specs and get it ready for bid. Okay? And that's also an addition that was not on there before, because now I know the cost of what it would take. So those would be the architect fees. Phone system, again, we talked about. Everything else got nailed by the lightning. This would replace the voicemail, which we're concerned about because everything else got hit by the lightning. Security cameras, a little bit of a change here. One of the things that we did have a discussion about is the fact that our recording systems are also getting old. Those are our DVD recorders that go from the cameras to the DVD recorder. We record it, we're able to pull it up, look at things, whether somebody broke into the building or whether there was some kind of misbehavior on a student. You can check with the cameras. Those recorders themselves are pretty expensive. So I think one of two things, and you'll notice that some of the areas are in dark, a little bit darker. Couldn't get it real good because it's not color, but those areas, there's still some question. We're still getting some quotes on those. Okay, we'll have to nail that down, but I wanted everybody to know that for that security piece, we could do that one of two ways. You could add additional dollars to the camera and security piece, which is $10,000 right now, because those do last quite a while, but ours are getting old. So you could add it there, or you could add it to the technology committee, and that's where that $4,000 would be. It would be help to pay for some of our security issues when they break down. Okay, remember the $4,000 would be collected every year. So it would be to help us replace cameras or the DVD recorders, that type of thing. Now, if we're looking at those DVD right now, if we think that they're gonna last longer, then this is probably a recommendation. If we don't, we may come back to the board and say we need to replace a couple right now. And like I said, each one of those is usually over $5,000. Any questions on that? Then the vans we talked about, we need to replace 3 vans within the next 5 years. Parking lots be $43,000, track would be $20,000, and that's just to repair it. There will come a time when that track will need to be rebuilt. And we're going to look at hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'm guessing, because then you're virtually taking the track out, recompacting the soil, because where those cracks are coming from is because of shifts in that ground. So if you don't do something to correct that, the cracks are going to come back. But for right now, we believe putting the $20,000 in will get us to the end of the 10 years. That's our hope right now. Now, we did talk about paving the fire lane. I don't know how to describe that road. Bruce, do you know a better way to describe it? It'd be the one between the baseball diamonds, right?
It's the one you go out of the parking lot.
I understand it's the one between the school and the stand where the announcers are.
Right, got it.
And it's supposed to be a fire lane going
It's
through.
supposed to be a fire lane. Right now, it's just all gravel. And one of the talks during the piece was at least find out what that would cost to pave it.
Where is this?
West of the tower.
You know where you go.
Yeah, west of the tower. It's that gravel road that runs.
Well, and it's really not supposed to be a gravel road. People use it as a road.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to be traveling on that.
And there's the entrance to that.
By the band room.
And then it goes right around and it comes out by the middle school on the other
You
side.
know, I think we need to do a couple things regardless of whether we do this and pave it. I think we need to get it, I think we have to have it open one way,
Yep.
but you don't need it open both ways. And I think we need to start telling people that indeed it is not a road. You know,
Well, that's for other things that are over there too, that go through there. I think we need to address those, but which really hasn't been addressed.
yep, don't disagree.
I mean, if we're gonna be sticking $40,000 in parking lot, we don't want to have a fair way through there.
Yep.
So,
Yep, I would agree. So We have not had a chance to get any cost estimate. We're gonna get a cost estimate to the board. It's not in here right now, just question mark, so just be aware that that will also be coming out. We did have a talk about the technology, and we do believe that we need to leave those on there. See, what will happen is that at the last meeting, we kind of talked about reducing that a little bit. Okay, yes? Dick?
Hey, I'm sorry.
Nope.
Can we go back to between track and the paved fire lane? I didn't
Sure.
get what the upgrade fields was.
It would be to pave it.
No, the field
Upgrade
between-
fields.
between the
Well,
track.
upgrade the fields, that would be, right now, we're spending quite a bit of money to upgrade every year, whether it's lime or whatever, or cut the base lines or make everything look nice. It would help us upgrade those and again, we're looking at that for 5 years, but that's it.
Sure.
You know, it's taken a big hunk out of our capital right now, so it would be anything that we believe would help us make our fields look better.
But not the fields over by the reserve center, you're not talking.
Well, I'll talk about the reserve center a little bit once I get there. I have a little bit more information on that, so we'll talk about that there.
Did that have to do with our irrigation on these fields out here too? Wasn't that in here?
Well, that's in our capital plan right now. The irrigation now, we may use this to upgrade those. We're increasing our irrigation to the JV field.
Yep.
We irrigate one side of it, but we don't irrigate the other side. If we irrigate that, that will open up the use of that for other activities. But a lot of it will depend on the reserve center also. Because depending on what we do with the reserve center, that could also open up quite a bit of an area with us. Okay? So let's see, pay the fire, we talked about that. Any other questions on that piece? Now, for the computer rotation, part of the problem with reducing that amount is that right now, if we put more money into the technology levy, and say it's 10,000 more than the rotation, because remember, the 80,000 or the 60,000 of that 80 is for just rotating our computers. We lease levy those right now, so we every year out of our capital, we take 60 to 75,000. But it's usually, we rotate every 6 years, so that will help us pay for the rotation. But anything above that, 60, and it was 70, we did increase it, we talked about it, we did increase it to 80. It would take, if we're putting approximately 100,000 in, because if you add the 58 and the 40 for the tablets for the elementary and high school, it would take a number of years to get to that. All right, so let's say we took the 58 or the 40 out of there, reduced it considerably, then it's just going to take a very long period of time. Now, I'd be the first to admit that it's not the best to buy technology on that type of situation. This is a one-time shot so that we can get it into our classrooms faster. That's it. Not the best, I would agree, but if we go the other way, either we'd have to increase that considerably to get it done quickly, but which would increase quite a bit for the tax burden. Or we give it a one-time shot and then we use the extra 20,000 that we would get out of that technology levy to continue to upgrade the tablets or the smart boards or anything else that we want. So we had good talk, and that's certainly what the technology committee would recommend. Any questions on that? Again, not what I'd like to do, I'd rather do it in a different way, but this does get us our technology in the classrooms for our students quicker. Infrastructure for, again, the technology levy piece would be 6,000, software 34, network administration, that's the person who keeps our network up and running, 52, whether it's a person or a company. And then 63, now I do believe that could cost more for us than the 63 depending on the qualified person that we get. Usually the people who have a technology piece can help with the classroom are usually on the high end of a teacher's salary. I didn't take the highest, certainly didn't take the lowest, but it could cost us more. I'm comfortable, I think we put 63 down on that. All right, and that person would help our teachers in the classroom learn and to be able to use technology, because we can provide all of the technology we want. If our teachers don't know how to use it, it becomes a toy, and that's just not worth it. I think that's part of the concern that I have with some of the places that are going to one-to-one initiatives. Unless those teachers are ready for those, I'd rather make sure our teachers are ready before we even have that discussion. And that person would help with that. right? Questions on that? Okay, Reserve Center, now we'll talk a little about that, you know, as we talked about Yolanda, she did say that we would be able to pay 20% of the appraised value. And we could use our thing for fields, which we would, and Matt and I talked, or Max and I have talked about that, and we could leave the building stand, as far as my understanding is, both the maintenance and the other one, and do with what them as we would as the needs of the district change. Okay, I did talk to an appraiser who can do this type of work. It would cost $3,000 to do that. So that's something, but it will take them 21 days to do it. And if we're going to move that way, I think we need to make a decision on probably that 3,000 if we're going to move forward on that, because otherwise, you know, if it's going to take 21 days, we won't know for sure about that 80,000. You know, right now we're going off of a rough estimate of 400,000 for the land. 80,000 is the 20% of that. So I guess I'd like some guidance, at least on that piece from the board, on whether we should just move forward with that. I don't want to spend the money if this isn't going to be something that we're going to probably for sure have on the facility project.
What's the other building there on that side?
It's a maintenance building. We use that,
You use it?
absolutely.
That's full.
Yeah. It's a tall building. I mean, it's bigger than what we need as far as height. We don't have the equipment that the Reserve Center did when they bring in there, but we use it all the time. We keep the temperature at the minimum because of the heating cost for that building, but it is used.
But the Reserve Center isn't being used.
Storage area right now. I mean, part of the problem is that we'd have to put money into the Reserve Center to get it up to ADA compliance for a building that right now we don't have a purpose for. There may come a time in our future that we look at it and say we want to do this and we want to put the money into that building. But with our budget as tight as it is right now, you know, it's not a building that we have to use. The facility committee really believes that we need to keep that property because it's adjacent to the land, and we could use the fields.
Explain the options again.
The options are to give it back.
Or pay 20% and use it for whatever we want.
Pay 20% use, well, it's not usable, well, I'd have to readjust the plan.
Okay.
So I can't say that Yolanda wouldn't come out and check to make sure that our kids are using their fields as athletic fields. The building itself, if we put in the new plan, that we're just using it for storage, but we'll have to upgrade it in the future, whatever, and we are using maintenance, I think that will work just fine. But I believe she would come out and say, we have to do it for whatever our change to plan is, which would be use it for fields, because we could use it for that. And if we build the addition as far as the gym space, community center, whatever we're going to call that, then we would have to move the parking lot back a little ways anyway, into that, what I think the 7th and 8th grade football field area, which then the Reserve Center fields become even more valuable.
Is that 7th and 8th grade football area part of the?
Our buy-in use, no, not,
Is that our property or
it's
yours?
our property right now, before those trees, it's
Yeah.
kind of that field between the
Yeah.
parking lot field, that's ours. We go about 10 feet on the other side of those trees. You know, part of the problem with that area though is that it's rock hard. I mean, if you walk out there during football season, it's not sprinkled, because that, and that's the other piece I'm gonna bring up that isn't on here right now. I don't think I put it on there. Yeah, I did, I should have put a question mark in there. But if we're going to do this and we're going to use that property, we probably need to put a well in. We haven't been able to get a cost for that. Just to sprinkle that area, because if you don't, that area just gets too hard. I wouldn't practice on that area if it's as hard as what I've seen.
Was there an option to pay more?
There is a pot, we could pay 80%, and I think at that point, virtually, we could do whatever we wanted with it.
So 20% you just need to change the plan.
20%, I think we need to change the plan. The 80%, I think we're kind of buying the property and we can do whatever we want. I'm not sure they'd still let us sell it, you know, at least for quite a few years. But we wouldn't have to use it for anything, I don't believe.
What did you just say? So if we paid 80%?
Yes.
80% of the value of the land, then it's ours?
You know, if we paid 80% of the value of the land,
80% of the value of the land.
yes, of the appraised value of the land,
Yeah.
then we wouldn't have really any stipulations on what we use the land for. I still don't think they would let us sell it, but we wouldn't have to put practice fields into it or anything else like that.
But you're looking at 20%.
Looking at paying 20%, changing those grassy areas into practice fields and pie fields. Using and telling them that we'll use the buildings and stuff, we're already using the maintenance shed, we use the other building for storage until we find a need for a student type or tear it down.
And they seem like they'd be okay with that.
My understanding is that that's what it is.
When we went over there as a committee, we looked at another building that we had to make compliant, didn't have any insulation in it, was built at a time that was not really a big deal. We'd have to insulate it, get it totally set before we could use it. And then when we start heating it, we're looking at all the regular costs of heat and everything else for 4 walls, where most of the items could be incorporated in this building where we already have that. And we couldn't actually figure out a use for it. And the whole committee struggled with it. And then we started talking about these other options. There also is a penalty that you read somewhere if we don't do anything. So it's not like we can just sit idle on it.
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, Julanda did not specifically tell me what would happen if we just said take it back. I don't know if at that point they would say, we're gonna force this issue. I don't think they want the property back.
No.
But at the same time, we did say we were gonna do this, this, and this for the dollar, of which we haven't done. So I think these are our other options that we have. We could say, take it back. You know, but you're also losing some very valuable property that's adjacent to the school district and could be used. I just don't know about that building. In the end, it could be better to tear it down and build whatever else we want on that property if we're going to do something.
And for 20% of the appraisal value,
Yes.
you can actually tear the building down and use it.
My understanding is we can do what we want to do with that building if it's in the plan. And I would be probably wishy-washy in the piece, and I'd say that if there's a need for us to update it and make it ADA compliant so we can use it for students,
Yeah.
then we would do that. And then I would say, but if there becomes no need, then we would tear it down and could make it into fields or, use the property to put another building up if we wanted.
And the 80,000 gives us a wide open. We don't have to tear it down right away if we would decide, because there again, it costs us money.
Are they
Here,
gonna
it
come
gives
out
us
and knock on your
flexibility.
door?
Oh, I believe that they're gonna come back and see if we're using those fields. If we say we're gonna use them as athletic fields, I think we'll come back and see if they were using them as athletic
Yeah.
fields. But we could use them for athletic, there's no problem with us using them.
With proper irrigation.
Yes, well, it's hard ground, it is.
They want the irrigation for the 7th and 8th grade field as it is anyway, so that.
Yeah, they,
But I just find it hard to believe that you can't find an appraiser for under 3,000. I'm guessing you got an appraiser living in the school district.
yeah, it's not an appraiser in the school district, I believe he's out of Wilmer. I did talk to a few appraisers, and I can certainly go back and ask more.
No,
That-
I'm guessing somebody lives here.
No, we're not-
It's a weird property though, I did talk to a few.
Well, sure, you won't find any comps.
Yeah, so I did talk with some of our realtors, and I did talk with one of our local appraisers. And he directed me to this person, as somebody who could do it.
So
Now,
the person you talk to locally can't do it?
he would not do it.
You need a special license for that.
It's not, I think part of it's that, but I think part of it's what Dick is also talking about as far as finding light grounds and I didn't check in St. Cloud though, and I can certainly do that. It was the first one I was able to get a hold of, but I can call St. Cloud and get another couple of appraisals. I think we should do that regardless, just to make sure that our cost is good. So I'll check with a couple people. I think I'll have to probably go to St. Cloud to find that.
Do we need to get to Yolanda and find out if this appraisal is acceptable?
She told me that any certified appraiser would be a certified appraisal.
Okay,
She
perfect.
didn't seem to have any concern about that.
Perfect.
I told her I'd be more than happy to do it, but she wouldn't buy into that. So-
You're not licensed.
So we need to do that soon to get that in our budget. too.
Well, to make sure that 80,000 is right. I mean, we could be out $100,000 for all I know, one way or another.
Are you looking for a motion to tell me that?
I think we can take a motion anytime we want
I'll
to.
make a motion that we direct the superintendent to find an appraiser for that property.
Okay, motion by Deb, second by Luke. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no.
I'll do a little bit of checking in St. Cloud to see if I can get it cheaper. I mean, they're gonna give you the idea pretty well. We Googled it on, on Google and mapped it, and I could see all the buildings and everything else, so it's very quick to show them what we're talking about, so I will do that. So that's the Reserve Center, and we'll get a cost on the well and irrigation. We'll skip over the community center addition, we'll go to that last again. We did find a few other things that we should at least talk about. One of the things was to clean the air ducts, we knew that was coming. We did put some money in for stream traps. It was brought up at the other piece, talking to Donnie, we believe that they're gonna go out. We think that's a legitimate cost in there to get some of our steam trap and pipe being fixed. Doors and garages, there's some doors and garages that we've got some difficulties with. We did put that in there, and again, these things will all last. I guess the biggest one is really, and one of the reasons that we have had issues with our maintenance is that, that's for 5 years of filters, $28,000. And that's, one filter change a year. That's part of what we have to make sure that we can do, is have the dollars to do the maintenance piece. So when asked about what are other things that we could use, that also came up. Then you have the total. Remember, the 239 is for 10 years, and that levy, again, is an every year levy. So you collect 239 for 10 years, that's all that comes up. The other one comes to 1.874. Now, I remind the board that we don't have to do a review and comment if we would only do this project. For the review and comment, anything less than 2 million, you don't have to do a review and comment, or you don't have to do a review and comment for the technology levy. Now, if we do add the addition, and there's been some discussion about that, again, I'll remind the board that we have a special board meeting for them, 3 groups to come out. Cross Anderson, R.A. Morton, and Winkleman are going to come out and present on Thursday to the board starting at 5 o'clock here in the seminar room. What we're kind of looking at, talking with Max, is an activity space of about 18,000. You would also have an entrance and a lobby, a wrestling room, which would be somewhere around 82 by 44. You'd need a restroom, you'd need a concession stand, you'd, looking at a multi-purpose room, a dance type of studio would be included in that. A visitor locker room, just a visitor locker room. They didn't think they needed one for each team, just a visitor locker room. The other piece there's been some discussion with Matt about is maybe trying to incorporate that some way so that people that are using the fitness center might be able to have some access to that locker room in some way for a shower. Because that is one thing that I agree for the fitness center, it's kind of a bummer if you come in, you work out, and you have no place to shower. So at least look at that, and then a couple storage areas. They're looking at approximate square footage of 27,000. That's what the people will be coming in with as they present, kind of as an idea. So kind of compare apples to apples. And I did give them that type of information. We're still on a really tight timeline for all of this. At the facility committee meeting, one of the things that they are recommending to the board, and I would say probably strongly recommending, is that we set up a community meeting. The date that they probably suggested was for me to write an article, kind of explaining some of these. I know Mike will be here, he'll probably add some things too, but a short article, at least, and maybe Mike and I can work on what he's going to cover and what I'll cover, but inviting the community in for July 7th meeting. Because the paper, we get in the paper, it would be in the paper next week, and then next Monday, that give the community enough time to be able to hope to make it. Next Monday, I'd probably say at 6:30, because you want to give the community members in the evening versus during the day, and set that up. So I don't think you need no motion necessarily, but if that's the desire of the board, I'll certainly set that meeting up. I think we have to start getting input from the community. If you don't start doing that, then they'll start thinking that this is all done, it's all set, and then ask them this way, and we can ask them and say, this is what we're looking at. They might have some ideas on any of these types of projects. We would go through it and then have a discussion with it. I think probably in years is good because we have the smart board and people can come up and ask questions and the board can listen. Again, it's more of a listening session like we did for the stadium.
One thing about it also is the public may have questions because we aren't going to have exact prices. We may not know exactly what it is. We need to engage the public potentially a little more in concept. And we will talk about it, but we're not gonna have 100% details. There'll probably have to be a series of public meetings when it firms up.
Yeah, and again, part of this is going to be just such tight deadlines for the review and comment, and hopefully our people are coming in on Thursday will give us a little information. But it seems to me that, at least what I look at, I'm thinking August, you better have that review and comment, even the first part of August, you better have that review and comment ready to go to the state. And so, there's not a lot of time here. We have a lot of work to do, and I'm suspecting if this goes through and the board is going to go through with what we're saying for both projects, I'm suspecting there'll be a couple special board meetings. Even for instance, the people are coming in on Thursday, but they're just coming to present. I'm probably going to suggest that after that, we set up a board meeting right away for the board to discuss that meeting and to decide whether we're going to go with any of them or not. You know, I've gotten one kind of proposal electronically. You know, there's some things that they're offering, you know, that, and again, I'm not going to go there. I want you to hear their proposals yourself. And then, but we'll have to have a meeting then to talk about that and decide whether you're going to go with it. So, and I think we can decide that on Thursday, but I would probably say that following week, as soon as we can post it, that we set another meeting to have that discussion. That's kind of a lot. Any other questions by community members?
So, we shouldn't need a motion or anything to set the public meeting.
If the board's desire for me to set a public meeting, I can do
Okay,
that.
so the 7th is it?
Yeah, it was the quickest because you gotta get it in the paper on Wednesday of next week. You gotta give them a little bit of time, and you run into the 4th. And that's part of your dilemma with even on Thursday. You know, at Thursday, you know, the one thing, or you might want to tell me right now, because I'm probably thinking, because you've got Thursday, then you got Friday, Saturday, Sunday, want to probably keep Monday, so I would probably look at a special board meeting on that Tuesday to have that discussion, and we could set that right now too, if the board thinks that that's an idea. It wouldn't be the 8th, it would be,
The 15th.
well, no, because we're running before, we're talking about next weekend, or next week, because you're meeting on Thursday.
This Thursday.
We are
Yeah.
meeting Thursday, this Thursday.
But the announcement is just
No,
for
next week.
information,
So
we
it's
can't make
second.
any decisions.
To be the second,
First.
or the, yeah, first week Tuesday,
public meeting on
on the 7th.
Okay.
But this would be, I mean, the question is this, you're gonna have the public meeting on the 7th. Of course, that's another thing you could do. You could have a special board meeting right after the public meeting. You could do that now. The timing's a little tricky because you gotta start your board meeting at a certain time. So if the public, nobody shows up to the public meeting, you might be twiddling your thumbs until your board meeting starts. You could have it conceivably on the 1st or 2nd of next week. Depends on what you hear though, so it might be better just to wait till Thursday and see what they say, and then you might decide, well, it's not only costing this or nothing and to do this, and then it might be worth it to do it with the understanding to the community that you're just doing this to move forward and be prepared, because the timing will be tight. That's the only reason I'm bringing this up, is because some of these things are going to have to be done quickly.
Can we vote on one of the proposals on Thursday?
No, you won't vote on any of the proposals. The only thing on Thursday is to hear. Yep, you're just gonna listen to them, because then you'll have to have another one. Because remember, you know, unless you specifically say in that special board meeting thing that you're gonna vote on this and stuff, you're not gonna vote. This was for information to be provided to the board. It's not a voting piece.
Why don't we have a meeting on the 8th, July 8th, after the community meeting, to discuss both the meeting this coming Thursday and the community meeting?
get it.
If you wanted to on Thursday, if you thought after Thursday that you should have one on Tuesday, you can decide Thursday.
Yes, that's true too. Yep, that's correct.
I guess my thought in somewhere discussion a little bit is, if, say we had somebody that the price was very economical to get us through this project, and we decided that they were the ones we were gonna select, and if we had selected them earlier than the 7th, it's possible we could have a little more information for the public. That was the only thought.
But I do think that
If not, then-
Dick was right in
yeah.
that you could wait till Thursday and still have a meeting on the 2nd for open meeting law.
Yeah.
So my suggestion is just
And
wait.
you don't wanna just because the guy's coming in less is always the best thing either.
No,
So I mean, you're
No,
still
we
gonna
have
have
to
night.
look. We're up in here until we see their proposals.
Right, but even after that proposal, we're gonna have to decide, do some dissection of what they're proposing, because, you know,
I think
there's so much information.
Yeah, the best option is let's listen to what they have to say on Thursday. You still have time to set meetings for the following week before the 4th if you want, or wait till the 7th or 8th. So that makes sense to me. Anything else? So that's all I have on this. It's just mainly an update.
Okay, any more comments from the public? Anybody else? I guess we will just move on. The personnel then?
Well, this is one more question, and I
Please,
still
yeah,
kind of
sure.
confused about. So, Bob, with the $239,000 that we're gonna be levying every year.
Yes.
For the next 10 years,
Yep.
is that a set amount that we will get every year, or do we have to actually levy for it?
You would levy for it, but I don't think you have to take the maximum. I think you could go out and you could say, well, you know, we didn't only spend this much, we think we're gonna be fine. You could reduce what you're gonna levy. I don't think you have to do it that way. I wanna double check on that, but I think you have some control.
Yeah, I would like to know that for sure.
Okay?
Because that would be my thought process, that the levy would be, we can go up to that, but if for whatever reason, say, for an example, if we're not using X amount of dollars for infrastructure because we're already sound in that, why do we, unless we have a good reason to put it somewhere else?
I did try to get a hold of somebody to get that answer, and I just couldn't get a hold of the person, so I will get that.
Okay. We're on number 6. We have one more business item. A review and consider approval of resolution establishing dates for filing affidavits of candidacy.
This is really, we just hit our timelines with everything we need to approve this resolution. It is just for the candidate piece and the election. In order for us to do everything else that we need to do, we need to get this approved today. And this is typically the same thing, I think, probably 3 years ago.
I'll make a motion that we approve this.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Cheryl. It is a resolution, and our customary practice in the resolution is a roll call.
All right, Kella? Mark?
Aye.
Deb?
Should have maybe asked you before you vote if if there's any comment. There's still a business piece. No comment, sorry.
Yes. Question. Did you come up with these?
No, a lawyer did.
Okay.
Because we want to make,
Have it.
because we want to make sure we do contact an attorney that deals with elections, because we don't want to mess an election up.
So,
Do you mean dates for the filing of candidacy? Yes, it's in the resolution. They begin on July 29th, close August 12th.
And we have to get it in the paper also. So it's really a timeline thing.
Aye.
Sorry.
Okay, any further discussion, anything more from the public? Can we start over with the roll call? then?
Absolutely.
Kella?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Deb?
Aye.
Dave? Lou?
Aye.
Bruce?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Okay, passed. Okay, then we move to number 1 in personnel. Review and consider approval of Brad Pence to teach the middle school, high school remediation program in August.
Yeah, this would really run through our targeted service program. So it's really cost neutral to the district.
So
So moved.
Second.
I missed that.
I made the motion.
Deb made the motion, and Cheryl was second. Raquel was second? Okay, excuse me. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Review and consider approval of Sandy Joyner, EAS, or ECSE summer van driver.
We need to do this.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Cheryl, seconded by Deb, is that what I heard? Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Review and consider approval to hire Kathleen Hammer, early childhood ECFE teacher position.
This is pending her completing one class. Will need to complete that in order to be able to teach. If we don't get the paperwork by the time the class starts, we would have to hire a sub until she becomes official with MDE.
Okay, I have a motion by Lou, second by David. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Passed. Review and consider approval to increase fitness center employee salary by 25 cents an hour.
And I think I'll have you come down and kind of explain it.
Okay, we're requesting a 25-cent increase for the fitness center staff. We requested one last year, but the one was not granted, so due to negotiations and that, so they did not get a raise last year. So I was talking to Cheryl today. She called me about wondering why they aren't on a step and system, and it's kind of one of those things that evolved, and I think that we should look into placing them in our personnel support staff system. You know, that may take some time to look at. I think the personnel committee would need to meet, or I don't know if we do the Hayes system or how that would go. But I would propose that we would go with this for this year and then explore getting them into a set system. It's kind of been one of those where we don't really have any guidelines, they don't fit in anywhere, and we had just been, we request, and if sometimes it's granted, sometimes it isn't, sometimes we went 4 years without them being able to get an increase. So I think to be more fair and consistent with our current plan, I think looking at that and looking at getting them into the personnel system, it is a consistent job. It is a little different that it isn't a lot of hours. No one has ever been over 20 hours a week average. Some are as few as 8 hours, but to have that consistency with how we treat other jobs, I think we should explore that this next year.
But your employees are full-time, or not full-time, but they're year-round.
Correct. Yep.
And you've had some employees that are with you a long time.
Mm-hmm. We have.
I believe Sue's been with you 16 years, if I remember right.
Well, we've only been open 13 years.
15?
Yeah. Yeah, 2001 we opened, so.
Okay.
Mhm.
She must have been with you at the start then.
I don't think she started right away. Would have to look back, but
And
she,
Jim wasn't much behind her.
yeah, correct. We haven't had a lot of turnover, which is good. Recently, we've had some moving and some movement there, but this is really a position that has evolved too. They don't sit at the desk much. It's teaching classes, it's actually custodial work, it's helping members, it's training. So it's one that we definitely should look at. Valuing more to have a consistency, and also the way it works right now, when I hire somebody with these guidelines, they start at where everyone else is at. So we don't have kind of
So they're all at the same,
they're all at the same level, because that's just what the rate is for that position.
does that include Lisa and Jennifer too?
No, for fitness center, we're only talking about the fitness center staff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, those positions are in the personnel guidelines at level 5 or whatever those are, so.
So then, what does your fitness center people do? Are you talking about they do classes and stuff too, or?
We teach group fitness classes. They do all the cleaning. A custodian has never had to clean in there since we've been open. Yeah, we do risk management, checking in, signing up new members. So it's everything from sales to cleaning to training. So, and that hasn't been since the beginning. Primarily when we first started, it was more of a cleaning job and check-in. We've really evolved over the 13 years, so.
How many are there employees?
We have 5. Yeah.
And with their experience level, they're able to assist with the machines,
Exactly.
equipment, and advise.
Yeah, we actually have some that on their own have gotten their own personal training certification and group fitness certification, so. So I'd definitely like to look at that being more in line and getting them into the personnel, whether that be, group 3 or group 4, that I think would have to do with that committee of how they would be. But I wouldn't like to delay that, because that could take some time, but for this year, get the increase and then get that system set up, is what I would propose.
So did I miss what they get paid if they would get paid the same?
$10 an hour currently, and this would go to $10.25.
And they've been at 10 for 2 years.
Correct, yes.
And there were years before that, but they received no raise also.
There were years before, yes, correct.
So they do not receive a yearly wage.
Correct.
Yearly raise.
Exactly, it has to do with, we propose some and it's been denied, or, it hasn't been really it hasn't been it's just been one of those jobs that was just kind of different and not classified, I guess would be the term.
I think we need to do a lot more looking into that, getting that into the system, and but I do believe that they should get a raise this year, so I would make a motion to approve the raise.
We have a motion by Deb.
Second.
We have a second by Lou. Do we have any further discussion? If no further discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Passed. Review and consider increasing Jennifer Morozik's hours, community education from $1,050 per year to $1,346 per year.
You want me to go through it? Okay. If you remember correctly, it was last spring or late winter, we had increased to get her so I could have her 5 days in a week. And those hours, and it was basically on a temporary because we knew a new fiscal year was coming. So this would continue that for the year, which we really needed and had requested last fall, but we backed out because she was needed so much for van driving. So we just kind of tried to make do and get through here. And but one thing we really are trying to do, we try to value our metrics too, and communication's a big thing. We need consistency in our office and to be able to communicate, so we need those consistent hours so we can communicate better with our customers if things are changed or what upcoming classes, and this will help us be more to do better at that, better coverage.
Hey, Matt, I don't want to backtrack here, I don't mean to, but I want to question, do they get any benefits at all at the fitness center employees? Such as a paid vacation or sick leave or anything like that?
The district's policies are set that it's 20 hours a week consistently to qualify for benefits, correct? I'm looking at Linda, would be in the personnel.
Depends on the type of benefit.
Yeah. Usually, you need to meet that threshold of an average of 20 hours a week to get. They do not.
They don't.
Any further discussion on item number 5?
It looks like there's like 5 and 6 would be kind of combined because we're looking for more hours on Lisa's.
Correct.
Right, so, I mean, what are we?
Typically, there's still different employees for that. You probably should have a motion on.
Oh, no, I understand that, but I want to see the concept.
But-
I'll address number 6 is definitely a different item to talk about when you go to that one.
Okay.
Different basis for that.
Okay.
If you want an explanation about the other one now.
I can talk about that one now if you'd like.
I would like to see how that's all plays
Okay,
together. So
sure.
We're looking like we're adding more, the community ed, we're, 300 hours on one person and 200 hours, or another 300 hours on another person in the year. So I just wonder where we're going and how does that compare to other.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you brought that up.
I think we should say what it was. Review and consider increasing Lisa Mead's hours, community education, from $14.78 per year to $17.76 per year.
And this increase is specifically due to the addition of the PAWS program, the school age childcare. That is a 359-day out of the years program.
Okay.
There, we will only be missing 6 days a year that program will not be running. With that, with a lot of research of areas, we need major support for communication and then billing and overseeing that. So that is specifically for that. If for some reason this doesn't go, I mean, we feel this is a value, we're gonna make this thing go, but if for some reason it didn't, we would come back and these hours would be decreased to coordinating. But I'm glad you asked that, Mark.
So the pause should generate revenue to.
Correct, and that is, both of these positions with these hours, the budget you approved this evening has both of these increases in that budget. Yeah. This first year with the pause is gonna be interesting, I hope we can cover that, but our break even is built in to cover this, because this is more of a coordinating hours to oversee that, billing and coordinating, so glad you asked that.
So will you just say what PAWS is? For
Yes,
people that might
yep,
watch
it's
this
our school age child care program for grades K through 5. So it'd be before and after school care and summer care, no school day care, early release care, and snow day care.
Okay, any further discussion on number 6? Entertain a motion on 5
So
to
moved.
start. I have a motion from Cheryl on number 5. Do I have a second? Second from Deb. Any further discussion on number 5? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Passed. Now we have number 6 that we also discussed. I'd entertain a motion on number 6.
So moved.
I have a motion by Cheryl.
Second.
Second.
Second by Kella. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no.
Thank you.
Review and consider approval. Review and consider approval to hire Amy Ruffey, paraprofessional.
This is just a replacement of a pair of positions and resignation, so no additional, just a replacement.
Motion by Dave. A second by Mark, was it?
Yeah.
Deb? Okay, a second by Deb. Motion by David, seconded by Deb. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no.
Forget it.
Okay. That was, it was all ayes. Informational reports, administrative negotiations report, and Bruce Vanderpool. We are working with our superintendent. We're working on a 3-year contract. We are getting very close. We are kind of holding it right now for finalization. We want to make sure the committee, I'll get a chance to look at it, obviously, and then we want all the board to look at it before it comes to the board next time. Okay? So we plan to take care of that on the 17th, isn't that what you said?
The July meeting.
Okay. Then I have a technology committee meeting report from Mark Dingman.
Yeah, we actually met today to talk about printers, and Metro and Marco came in for presentations today and talked about their strategies on, they both had come up with 2 different strategies on how they can help the district potentially save money and or how they can work with us to maintain our equipment that we have. So They gave us their proposals, they were gonna go back and actually put them together, then Bob was going to actually put a side by side of what the comparisons are, and then we're gonna meet again and talk that over, and then bring it back to the board for their.
Some discussion, at least informational.
Yeah.
I think one way or another that we have to do something. Right now, our equipment is old. We're either gonna have to purchase new equipment or come up with some kind of lease piece that will make sure that we have the equipment that we need. We're looking at either doing it just the way we're doing it now or decentralizing it where there's more computer or printers around in the buildings to use, and teachers would do more of their printing themselves. So we have a lot of discussion yet to have.
But it's still surprising how many copies that we read in here. It's just.
How many is it?
Well, they broke it out by month, and I think for one of the biggest utilizers, like, what is it, 150,000 a month?
It's a lot. One of the things that we're looking at is starting to track how we're doing the copies, so that we can at least, I mean, I'm not saying that every copy may absolutely be essential, but it does give us the option to take a look and kind of do some checking on what's happening with our printers and who's copying them and are they necessary. And I mean, really, as we start to go to more iPads and that type of stuff, our copies should go down. But it's to have some good discussion about that.
I like the idea of being able to have accountability on the staff, to identify who's printing and what are they printing and stuff like that. So, you know, they, at least in hindsight, it's a process that, you know, each person has to go through figuring out, are they gonna hit that print key or not? And I find that of myself at my job too, where it's just like, I don't really necessarily need to print that, you know, and you have a big organization like this here, or a school that has so many kids that is correspondence with parents and stuff is with paper, there's a lot of use for that. But there's also a lot of savings in the same breath hold, so. It'll be interesting where we go to that with that.
Number 3 then, administration meeting report.
Yeah, well, I do like starting with an apology, but you get one at the start of this one, both to the community mainly and also to the board. We had the facility meeting, and I did change the location of that meeting. And where we've been posting everything to the web, we did not get that change occurred. And to add insult to injury, we have a board member on our technology committee, and that one was also not put on the web. So one of the things that Lynn and I have been talking about, and I'll be having the discussion with other people, at one time we posted these to the door, which it certainly is not. Our main posting place is our office. It's our bulletin board in the office. But I really don't want to have everybody come into our office to see what's going on, so we, rather than the doors, we started to move them to the web. Now that's good and dandy as long as we make sure that we get it on the web correctly. And we didn't, and that's where my apology certainly goes to the community. We're going to find a way to make sure that that does not happen again. So we need to do some checks on that. I think that the website is still the place to do it, so they don't have to check doors and that kind of stuff. But if we're going to do that, then I need to make sure that the community has all the information they need in order to get to a meeting if they so desire. So again, my apology to the community and to the board for that. We've had some discussion with Charles Cross about the bus contract. He is meeting with the bus company. He's already met with me to gather information as we start to talk about where our bus transportation system is in line with other districts. All right, so we've just started that journey. Certainly that will play a role into negotiations to some degree as we gather that information. Any questions on that one? Strategic plan, I have talked with a few people, a few superintendents about, or people who do the strategic planning. I did talk to Greg Liddell. His charges anywhere between 9,000 and 14,000. All right, that's one of the issues that I'm running into now is cost. I talked to Stock Center, who just had him do it. It was a great process. They would recommend it. All right, the cost varies between the number of meetings and how planning occurs, but as we find out more about that, we checked with another person who another district has used, and that was between 6 and 7. So I'm not sure where I'm gonna go with this right now. I want to sit down, I want to talk to a few more superintendents, and then I eventually will come to the board and say, these are our options, have some discussion, pick where we want to go with it, and then we'll go from there. But just kind of a heads up on that. We're also looking at ASOP, which is an automated sub-calling system. Right now, the person who's done our sub-calling has resigned from that position. It won't do it anymore, so we need to replace it in some ways. Could be another person if we have somebody that's really interested in it, or we may go to an automated system. Okay, so I'll fill the board in on that as we get a little bit further down the road. Also had some discussion with Matt, and that name of that software system is?
AreaSchool today.
AreaSchool State. He's going to use this particular system to allow him to charge his fees.
Yeah, we're looking at moving to that, to become a district that would utilize that for our community ed software and facility managing, with the reason being that they have a JMC module also that communicates so people could pay online for their lunch accounts. So we're exploring that option right now, because we need a new solution for the school-age childcare program too, and they have a good module for that. So I talked about that today. Food service is interested in that module, because we have been hearing that, even I think at this level you had been, about people being able to pay lunch account fees online. This could be a solution for that.
Yeah, I do believe that that would be a recommendation on my part to the board that we do that. I think it's important. One of the biggest decisions with this is that there is a
About $450 to $500 yearly cost.
yearly cost for that. But the other piece is that there's a transaction fee also. So the question would be is how do you pay for those fees? Does the district take them all and just pay them all and eat that cost? Or does the district pay the $400, for instance, and then charge back to the parents for the use of that service, whatever the transaction fee is? So we'll certainly bring that forward to the board and have some good discussion about that. But I do think it's probably past time that we set something like this up for our community members to use for the lunch accounts. Questions on that? That's what I have.
Okay, any other sharing of the board?
So I have one clarification. When I was walking out, Linda said, you guys meeting with the school-age childcare on the weekends? What I meant to say is that we are only having 6 weekdays, which would be 255 days, I'm sorry. There's only 6 weekdays, we're not meeting on the weekends, so I wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Families would be excited.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn. A motion by Luz, second by
Yes.
Deb. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Thank you.